Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. On this Monday, it's December 4th. It's officially Christmas shopping season. Don wears size large, I think. So whatever you need to get him, it's a size L. Put him on your list. It's like kind of having one of those lists when people get married. What do you call those? Registry. Just put Don on the registry at some place, at his favorite place. But, Don Fischer joins us now. Busy weekend, Don, only because not only did Indiana open Big Ten play, you have the announcement of their new football coach. We'll start with the basketball because Maryland came in and we didn't know exactly what to expect. And Indiana played really well against a team that was going to give them their first in-conference challenge. It was Indiana never really looked in danger to me, although there were times Maryland pushed them. But, man, Khalil Ware just continues to improve. Indiana without Xavier Johnson right now, I wondered how that would look. Trey Galloway kind of stepped up with everything. And Gabe Cupps didn't he was able to play a game and not make a ton of mistakes. And Indiana successfully navigated those waters.
Well, they played really well for 30 minutes. I mean, they built a 23-point lead 10 minutes or so into the second half. Unfortunately, they let it slip away in the final 10 minutes to a point where they had 11 turnovers, which is always concerning to say the least, because they weren't handling the pressure that Michigan was putting on them. So that's something that Mike, I'm sure, is concerned about. At the same time, they stopped the three-point shot in this ball game, which was really good to see. They allowed only one three-point field goal in each of the halves. And Maryland, rather, is a team that takes quite a few threes at most of the time. And Indiana was able to get that stopped, which has been an issue for this ball club. They out-rebounded Maryland 46-30. Ware was a big part of that. I thought Khalil played really well for a second straight ball game. He is starting to fill a void, so to speak, for this ball club. And let's face it, the front line continues to play very well. The three-point shooting is still an issue for this ball club. 3 of 9. They only took 9 in the game. I think Galloway was he just took one three-point shot.
Yeah, he was 0 for 1.
I still think he's a guy that's got to step up at the three-point line and start knocking them down. He's really struggling in that area right now. I think he's 3 for about 18 or 19, something like that. And we know he's a better shooter than that. And Baco, however, has also started to play his best basketball, which is another good sign, because now you got a true freshman that's starting to understand his role and starting to understand the system. So it just looks like more of a cohesive basketball team at this point. That said, they still have a long way to go. As Mike pointed out in the postgame, this team still is trying to find its way. But the good news is, in that first game without Xavier Johnson, they played really well. And were able to run the offense pretty well until they got in the turnover issues in that last 10 minutes. So from my perspective, they made progress once again. They are now a one-loss team at 6-1 on the season. They've got another huge game coming up against Michigan, I should say, tomorrow night. And Michigan is a team that's a little bit like Indiana, except they haven't won as many ball games. They're 4-4 at this point, but they've got a bunch of guys that are new. They've got a couple of guys. Doug McDaniel's playing tremendous for them at the point guard spot. He was spectacular in that game against Oregon. He had 33 points. He's averaging 20 a game. And he just ran the show. He looked like Boo Buie out there. And Buie, of course, as everybody knows, is a giant killer with his performances against Purdue the last couple of years and against Indiana when Indiana lost to him up there last year. So at any rate, we're looking at a basketball team right now that's progressing. And that's what, at this point in the season, you want to see that. You want to see them getting better, the chemistry getting better, guys stepping up and improving their game. And right now we're getting that up at upscale, up the ladder type of performance each time they go out on the floor. And that must continue because they're now in the toughest stretch of their non-conference portion of their schedule. Or let's put it this way. As far as 1 month is concerned, this is the toughest month that they're in right now as far as their schedule in non-conference play and the first 2 Big Ten games. It's going to be tough. And they've got Auburn coming up on Saturday in Atlanta, and then they've got Kansas a week after that before it settles down here. So up to this point, being 6-1, you got to be happy.
Absolutely, and I suggest people may take a Lee Corso moment and take a picture of the Big Ten scoreboard right now, because Indiana tied for first at the top and Purdue tied for last at the bottom after getting defeated by Boo Buie and the Northwestern Wildcats the other night. As we watched that one, that was a Wildcats, man. They're coming to play this year. Without question.
Well, they did last year too. I mean, Indiana Northwestern tied. Everybody forgets this. They both tied for second place in the Big Ten last year. People forget that because Indiana didn't blow people away. But you got to understand, there is so much parity in college basketball now. Anybody on any given day can beat you. Ask Auburn. They just got beat by Austin Peay.
Yeah, I was trying to find the seasonal stats for Mackenzie Mbako of free throw shooting, because one thing I know that I've looked at game after game, man, this doesn't miss a free throw. Has he missed a free throw this year?
No, he has not.
Is he 15 of 15? Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah, so that tells me a lot right there. First of all, Todd Leary has told me this dude is a shooter. I mean, he is a dead eye shooter. And so it's just a matter of time before he gets comfortable. And it looks like he's starting to get more and more comfortable, not just with his offense, but just this level. And his stats line from the game the other night is just, man, 13 points, 4 of 9, 1 of 2 from behind the arc, 4 of 4 at the free throw line, 7 rebounds and 3 assists. With 0 turnovers. That's a hell of a stat line.
Yeah, it is. There's no question. He has made real progress. There's no question about that here in the last couple of weeks. Like Khalil Ware also has made a lot of progress over the last couple of weeks as well. These guys are starting to become big factors for this ball club. It's got to continue, and they're going to have some rough spots here coming forward, because the schedule is really difficult here in the next couple of weeks. But this is a basketball team that's making progress. And with as many young faces or new faces on this team, not young, but new faces on this team, to make this kind of progress at this point in the season, exactly what you want.
Yeah, the Indiana is just, to me, the guard position is just the one thing that is keeping this team from being really good. I mean, I'm talking a top 20 team right now. They without Xavier, the guards went the other night. You got CJ Banks who comes in, and even Caleb Banks, who's not necessarily a guard, but those two combined to go 1 for 9 shooting.
You mean CJ Gunn?
Yes. See, I'm sorry, I don't know what I said. CJ Gunn, in addition to Gabe Cupps, who went 0 for 2. So then you add 2 more to that. They're not getting the scoring there right now. That is the difference between this being a really good basketball team.
Well, Galloway had 12 in the game. He was 6 of 10. Obviously, no threes. So he didn't miss his only 3. But Trey Galloway stepped up. I thought, with X being out, I thought he took that leadership role that you have to have, and probably played a lot of the point guard position. And here's the other thing. Anthony Leal is starting to get some playing time.
Yes, he is.
And I think when he's been out there, I think he's been solid. I don't think he's been spectacular, but I think he's been solid. He's giving you another body that you can put out there as a guard. And if he starts to shoot the basketball like we know he's capable of, then that could really help this ball club as well. And with X being out, they're going to need that help, I think.
Yeah, I don't think you want to be in that gym if when he hits that first big time 3, the assembly hall roof will probably cave in, and so it will explode literally. And who knows, that could come at home against Kansas in the coming weeks, or maybe down in Atlanta. But a big time trip coming up for Indiana as they head to Atlanta to take on an Auburn team coming off of a loss.
Well, they got to take on Michigan first. That's going to be the biggest.
Right.
That's the biggest problem right now. Is the Wolverines are hungry. they're dealing with the same thing Indiana's dealing with, new faces. And they're also with Juwan Howard, even though he's back on the bench. He's still not in the acting role or the role as the head coach at this juncture. He's basically an assistant. How about this? He got tossed out of the first game he was back on the bench with the program. He got tossed out of the ball game. He got 2 technical fouls and got pitched. So he hasn't changed his stripes at all, despite the heart attack and all the issues he went through with heart surgery and all that kind of thing. So, but Michigan is going to be a challenge, and if you can't keep Doug McDaniel contained, he will beat you by himself. He is that good the way he's playing right now. He's playing like Boo Booey. I mean, that's what he looks like right there. And that game against Oregon, I watched most of it. And I watched their overtime period. They could have won that game easily. They did not. So they're obviously going to come back gnashing teeth and being upset about it and looking to knock off Indiana and to take some of the shine off the Hoosiers. So we'll see what happens on tomorrow night.
Curt Cignetti announced as Indiana's newest football coach, and from all everything I've seen, it has been a welcomed hire. The media, those of us that think this seems like a pretty good hire. The fans have been on board. The fans have the response has been really, really positive. I think they're responding to part of his enthusiasm, and I'm not just talking about a rah-rah enthusiasm. It's a no BS kind of a way to go, and that's the kind of guy that I can already see the Curt Cignetti is. There's no BS.
No, there's not. He's a very confident man, and he should be. He's had 13 seasons as a head coach. He's never had a losing season, and he's taken on programs that haven't been winners. So you got to love what you're seeing in Curt Cignetti at this point. His record spells success. His confidence level is up there with just about anybody I've been around. And I think that's a good thing at Indiana. You got to believe in yourself first. If you don't believe in yourself, then you're going nowhere. And I think the other thing he brings to the table, he has a process. He believes in his system. He's bringing his offensive and his defensive coordinator with him, as well as his quarterbacks coach. I believe he's bringing Pat Kuntz with him as well as a defensive line coach. And Pat Kuntz was at Indiana under Kevin Wilson and Tom Allen both before he left. And I think Pat Kuntz is a really good football coach. I do. He's from Roncalli High School in Indianapolis. I've known Pat for years, really like him. And he is one of those guys that gets after it from a coaching perspective. And I like that a lot. He's keeping Bob Bostad from the previous staff, who was a 1-year hire under Tom Allen. And of course was fired from Wisconsin after they changed coaches. So he was let go and he was available. Indiana got him, and now he'll be a part of this staff as well, because that just signals the kind of improvement we saw in the offensive line this year. There's so much to like about Cignetti, because the one thing that I think has been missing more than anything else has been development of players. I really believe that, and that's not a knock on Tom Allen. It's not a knock on his staff. It's just the facts are development has not been as good as you would like to have seen in a number of areas. And offensive line was one of those. And it was starting to get better this year under Bostad, no question about it. But the development is the critical thing that's been missing, I think, for a long time at Indiana. Bill Mallory's first key that he put into place, we're going to develop our players. We're going to get our players to make them better players. And I think that's the key to any success that you're going to have as a football coach. You've got to be able to develop talent. You've got to have a staff that understands that.
Yeah, and it's not the number, but you have to see guys going into the NFL, going to that next level, because that is a sign of that. And I'm not saying they have to match any of these big schools with the numbers, but it's just you've got to see some guys going up, because that will show that development. I agree with you 1,000%. And it's going to be a different attitude than it was with Tom Allen's. Some of these players, so some that are in the portal, some are going to come back. Some are not going to come back, because it's going to be a different type of environment. and that's just going to be the way with any program.
No, that's exactly right. And there are going to be guys that they'll buy into Cignetti, and there'll be guys that don't. And that's as well for the recruits that Tom Allen has, had verbal commitments from. And I guess 4 or 5 of those guys have said, well, we're opening up our recruiting again. Well, Cignetti will probably try. If he thinks those guys are worthy, he'll try to recruit them back and see if he can get them back. The thing that impresses me about Cignetti as much as anything is just the confidence that he has in himself and his system. And that to me is the critical aspect of what we're about to see and the change at Indiana. I do think that the confidence level in what you're doing and then working that process is the key to this team or this program turning around. And Cignetti embodies that, I think, with the way he talks about it.
Absolutely. He says that we have a proven blueprint, a proven system that has worked, and that is what they are going to bring to Indiana. And it's something that Indiana didn't have before because it was a new, for Tom, it was a new start. So he didn't have a blueprint, really. He didn't have something to go off of, where Cignetti has been doing this and doing it at different stops. So hopefully it works for Indiana, but if nothing else, I think they're going to have a good time along the way.
Well, I don't think there's any question. I think Mr. Cignetti won the fan base over with his little comment during the timeout of the basketball game the other night. Without question, that was probably one of the funnier and best lines I've ever heard in regard to a new coach being introduced. He didn't talk about we're going to win the Big Ten or any of that kind of. He just got out there and he said, "I've never taken a backseat to anybody, and I'm not about to now. Purdue sucks. So does Michigan and Ohio State."